boobs, 4 stars. Heterosexual, 3 stars. Death, drugs, house fire, 4 stars. My cliff notes for this video is just read this book. What's up, guys? My name is Natalie, and welcome to my Nook of Novels. In today's video, I am going to be telling you guys about every single book I read in 2025 using one word. Now, I haven't made a video in a couple months now. I moved, obviously, as you can probably tell from the vastly different background, and I just haven't had a lot of time. I filmed a January TBR, never had time to edit it. I did not even film a February TBR, but I will be coming back in March with a March TBR, and I'm very excited for that. I'm going to be implementing a few changes to my TBRs for the rest of this year, which I will get to later, but that's not what we're here for right now. Right now we are here to discuss the books that I read in 2025. Now, it's obviously a little bit late to be doing a 2025 wrap-up kind of video, but I spent a lot of time kind of working on this video and like coming up with ideas, if you will. Ideas being like the words that I'm going to be using to describe each book, and I didn't want to just throw away all that effort. And I also thought that this would be a fun video, especially as like an introductory back to my channel after the couple months hiatus that I've had. So I wanted to film it. I thought it would be fun. So I figured, why not go ahead and start with this before jumping into the next monthly TBR. How this is going to work, it's pretty self-explanatory, but again, every single book that I read, I'm going to be using one word to describe. So I'm going to tell you guys the name of the book, the author, the star rating I gave it, and the word that I'm describing the book with. Every book that I gave 5 stars, I'm going to give myself 2 words to describe it, so that, I don't know, I just thought that would be a fun little bonus. I moved my microphone a little bit, so hopefully now it won't like catch on my overalls so much and create a bunch of annoying noise. Also, side note, I have a microphone now. My boyfriend had like an extra phone that, thank goodness, was compatible with these microphones, because I acquired them and I haven't been able to use them because it didn't work with either of my phones, my regular phone or my filming phone. And so I've just had to suffer and have them stare at me and be appealing and look like my videos would have good audio quality, but not, because I couldn't use them. But now, fortunately, I am finally able to have good audio quality. Yippee! It's been so long now that I've been talking about using microphones, and now I finally get to. So exciting. We're off to a great start in 2026. Without further ado, I feel like there's more I'm missing. Oh my gosh. Without further ado, I guess let's go ahead and get to the books I read. Well, we'll start with the stats. We'll start with my statistics of 2025. So there's probably a couple things missing here that I maybe should have calculated, but I didn't think to. But here is all of the statistics that I wrote down for my 2025 reading. And if you guys are interested in seeing anything else, my Goodreads is always in the description box. If you guys want to go follow me on Goodreads and check out my 2025 reading stats on there, everything that Goodreads determined about my reading in 2025. Some of it like doesn't line up exactly because sometimes it gets page numbers wrong and stuff like that. So here's everything that I personally calculated for my reading. So my best reading month was October, where I read 16 books. My worst reading month was February, where I read 0 books. The number of books I read was 70 total. The number of pages I read was 22,218. The number of books that I acquired, so this is things that I purchased, things that were gifted to me, anything like that, was 58. The number of pages that I acquired, if that makes sense, so the number of pages within all of the books total combined that I acquired was 18,768, which sounds like quite a lot. But, so I read 22,000 pages. So I read almost 4,000 more pages than what I acquired, which is the good news. The bad news is that only 23 of the books that I read in 2025 were books that I own. 7,841 of the pages I read were things that I chipped away from my physical TBR. So I added 11,000 more pages to my TBR in this last year than what I read. The number of sequels I read was 37. The number of series I finished was 6. The number of 5-star star reads I had was 4.3, and I'll get to why that is in a little bit. The number of big books I read, which is things that are 450 pages or more, was 11. The average number of pages for all the books that I read was 317.4. The average length of time it took me to read each book was 23 days. So sometimes I'm reading multiple books at once. So the way I calculated this was the amount of time that it took me to read each book. So I didn't just do, I read 70 books across 365 days. So 365 divided by 70, that's not what I did. I did like, it took me 2 months to read this book, but then I also was reading these other books alongside it, and here's how long it took me to read each of those. That's how I did that math. So that's why that probably sounds like a weird number, because by that math, I would have only read like 15 books throughout the year, but that's why that number was 23. Average rating was 3.836. The average publication year was 2016, which I found to be very interesting. So my oldest book that I read was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume, which came out in 1970. And aside from that, I want to say pretty much everything else I read came out like in the 2000s. So that is like really different for me in terms of my reading years. I'm just not good at reading new releases, I guess is my biggest thing. So usually most of the books that I've read will be like 2010s-ish, and then there'll be a couple of classics here and there. So it'll bring the average down to like 1980 or something. So 2016 is crazy. Actually, let me compare to the previous year. I don't know where my statistics are for 2024 or 2023, actually. You know what? I guess I won't compare right this minute, but I'll put on the screen, hopefully, what my average publication year was for the previous 2 years, just so that you guys can see that for reference. I found that one to be really interesting. This next thing is also interesting. So the number of genres that I read was 13. My favorite genres are fantasy and literary fiction. Those are my top two that I would say I enjoy the most, which you wouldn't necessarily gather from these statistics. So the number of nonfiction books I read was 2. The number of fantasy books I read was 9. The number of poetry collections was 4. The number of sci-fi books was 6. Historical fiction, 2. Contemporary romance, 8. Dystopian, 5. Contemporary other. So this was just things that were contemporary books that I didn't want to classify as like mystery or romance, things that just didn't really fall into those categories. There were 4 of those. 11 retellings, which I don't really read retellings that often, but the majority of those came from the Lore Olympus books, which I read 8 of in 2025. So there were 11 of those. 2 historical fantasy, only 2 literary fiction, 2 thrillers, and 13 magical realism. The number of graphic novels I read was 23, which is an absurdly high number for me because I do not normally read that many graphic novels. The number of audiobooks I read was 19. The biggest book I read, which coincidentally was my last book of the year, was Ruin by John Gwynne, which was 746 pages. The smallest book I read was The Raven and Other Poems, which was 63 pages. The newest book I read was Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab, which came out in June of 2025, which is crazy. Like, I normally do not read books as soon as they're released. Never happens, but it happened this year. The oldest book I already mentioned was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume, which came out in 1970. The longest book it took me to read was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, which took me 5 months. To be fair, I was reading this to my boyfriend when I first started it, and we get through books pretty slowly, and then we got about halfway through and he was like, yeah, I don't want to keep reading this. So then I kind of like paused for a minute and then finished it on audio. So that's why that took me so long. And the longest series I finished were Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco and the Divergent series by Veronica Roth, which were both 4 books long. Divergent, I'm counting as 4 books because I read the trilogy and 4, the novella, and that's what I'm counting as the 4th book for that. Overall, I am very happy with my reading in 2025. My really biggest goal that I was really needing to do to accomplish was to try to get through as many series as I could. And I do feel like I really accomplished that and kind of got things back in order and got back on top of my reading in order to kind of prepare myself for the next couple of years in terms of being able to read things with confidence and not stressing over the fact that what I'm reading is not productive and not continuing with the series. Even starting a new series, I feel like I would be okay starting a new series right now if I chose to do that, which is a great feeling to have. And while there still are a lot of series that I am technically currently reading, I just generally feel better about those series. And for most of them, I feel like they're things that I could continue with at any point in time and feel comfortable knowing what's going on and being able to jump back into the story, or just things that I'm gonna have to start over anyway, so I'm not really that bothered about prioritizing immediately. So yeah, I read, again, like I said, 37 sequels, which is just so impressive. That is more than half of the books I read this last year were sequels. And again, I finished 6 series, which isn't a huge number, but the fact that I like got on top of so many other series as well just really makes me very happy. I also decided to kind of scrap the Magic Treehouse series because I was really just not having that much fun with them anymore. And they're not books I physically own. I was borrowing them from my parents, and so I figured I would just go ahead and give those back to them and just not really worry about that one anymore, because it wasn't really something that was like actively bringing me joy. It was kind of just like one more Magic Treehouse to add, and it kind of just felt like it took up time and wasn't that exciting for me anymore. So I'm done with those for right now. Maybe one day I'll come back to them, but I'm really not worried about it right this minute. But yeah, so those were all of my statistics for 2025. I do also really quickly, before I get to the books, want to talk about some of my reading goals for 2026. Now, obviously, reading sequels is still going to be something I'm going to prioritize for the most part. I do have a couple specific series that I'm trying to get to as soon as I can. I will not name them because I feel like naming them in a video like this is literally the #1 way to jinx myself and never read them ever again. So I'm not going to do that. But there's specifically 2 series in my brain that I'm really trying to get through. And honestly, I think it's those 2 series alone that I'm really worried about the most. Maybe 3, but everything else I feel good about, which again, it's so great. Anyway, and so I'm also trying to focus a little bit more on my physical TBR this year so that I can kind of chip away at the physical books I own that I haven't read, because I really do want to be at a point where I can expand my library, get more bookshelves, buy a bunch more books without feeling like I am just overwhelming myself with my physical TBR, because the amount of books I have right now that I haven't read is a little bit overwhelming to me. Not absurdly so, just because I feel like I will get through them all eventually, but I don't want to be acquiring more books each year than I'm reading of what I own, because then it's just like an endless cycle that will just keep growing and growing, and it'll just get out of hand very quickly, I feel like. I want to feel like I can buy books without being too stressed about what I'm adding to my TBR. So I want to have a smaller TBR so that I can buy more books and feel okay with that, if that makes sense. Another goal that I have is I want to be reading more relevant books, if that makes sense. I want to be reading more of the things that people are actively talking about. One, because the YouTube algorithm really likes when I do that, and so it'll be helpful for growing my channel, which is just really something, like, I feel like I've been trying so hard for so many years to really grow this channel as much as I possibly can, and it's really hard to do with the YouTube algorithm. And so just something that I've noticed recently is that when I mention a really popular book that is really popular in the moment, those are the videos that end up doing the best. And obviously I don't want to completely change my channel to where like that's the only thing I'm focusing on, because it's obviously not like the #1 most important thing to me, but it will just be helpful for trying to actually like get somewhere with this channel, as well as just being more relevant. Like I said, I don't know, I feel like I live under a rock sometimes in terms of some of the most popular books, and I want to feel like I know what people are talking about and not be years behind the current reading trends. And again, like obviously I'm still going to be focusing on other things, like I'm going to be trying to read books that I wouldn't necessarily pick up all the time, or sequels, or you know, just other books that I physically own, things I'm excited for, stuff like that. I really do want to enjoy my reading as much as I can, but I also do just want to read stuff that is current and feel like I'm part of the conversation a little bit and be able to contribute things about some of your guys' favorite books that you guys are reading as well. I feel like I'll have more fun that way as well. Reading stuff that's popular kind of feels like a break for me sometimes, a little bit. Like I get to just sit back and read something really, really fun and fresh and funky, if you will. So yeah, I'm very excited to kind of be focusing on that a little bit more as well. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get to every single book I read in 2025 using one word. If any of these books, if you guys want more of an explanation on any of these, if you want to know why I chose the word that I did, or just my general thoughts on these books overall, you can comment down below. You can message me on Instagram, on on Goodreads, anything like that, feel free to reach out to me and just ask, hey, why'd you use that word? What'd you think of that book? And I will be happy to give you guys a full review of any of these books that I read. If I tried to describe every single one of these in this video, we would be here for years. So I'm just trying to avoid all that and be concise here. But again, I'm happy to give you guys more of an explanation on anything that you wish. Also, the words that I'm using to describe these books can literally mean anything. So this isn't necessarily just a description of the book itself. Some of them are, you know, my favorite character from the book, what the book reminded me of, my favorite part of the book, just something that I had to say about the book, just literally anything. So take these with a grain of salt is essentially what I'm saying. So the first book that I finished in 2025 was How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. I gave this book 4 stars, and the word that I'm using to describe it is important. The next book I read was Kings of the Wilds by Nicholas Eames, which I gave 4.5 stars, and the word for this was sarcasm. Night for a Day by Kate McMullen, which is, I want to say, like the 4th or 5th book in the Dragon Slayers Academy series. I gave this one 4 stars, and my word is goofy. I Hope You Stay by Courtney Peppernell. Pretty, 3.5 stars. Valor by John Gwynne. Plot, 4 stars. Saga Volume 6 by Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan. Planets, 4 stars. Capturing the Devil by Carrie Maniscalco. Mid, 3 stars. She Followed the Moon Back to Herself by Amanda Lovelace. Dazzling, 4 stars. Let It Snow by John Green, Maureen Johnson, and Lauren Miracle. This one's a little confusing. so the first story by Maureen Johnson, I gave 4 stars. The second story by John Green, I gave 5 stars. And the third story by Lauren Miracle, I gave 2 stars. Overall, I gave the book a 4 stars. Because one of the short stories was 5 stars, I decided to give this one 2 words. So the 2 words for this one are Christmas and LMAO. My Name is Jason, Mine Too by Jason Griffin and Jason Reynolds. Inspiring, 3.5 stars. Shatter Me by Tahar Mafi. Poetic, 4 stars. My Last Summer with Cass by Mark Grilly. Painting and Friendship, 5 stars. The Wendy Project by Melissa Jane Osborne. Contrast, 4 stars. Haunting Adeline, 0 stars. In terms of my enjoyment, I gave this one 4 stars, but because I don't support this author's depiction of assaults, I did not want to rate this one. So I realistically give this book 0 stars. The Hunt for Red October, Politics, 3 stars. City of Glass, Action, 4.5 stars. Saga Volume 7, Cute, 4 stars. Destroy Me by Tahar Mafi, which is the novella that comes after the first book in the Shatter Me series. Villain, 4 stars. High Tide in Hawaii by Mary Pope Osborne. Giggle, 3.5 stars. Saga Volume 8 by Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan. Representation, 4 stars. Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukafka. Humanity and Injustice, 5 stars. My cliff notes for this video is just read this book because this is my #1 recommendation. It is so good. Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. Pronunciation, 3.5 stars. The Kill Order by James Dashner. Quick, 3 stars. Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. Shapeshifter, 3 stars. Christmas in Camelot by Mary Pope Osborne. Dancing, 4 stars. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Devastating, 4 stars. It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. Lighthearted, 4 stars. Layla by Colleen Hoover. Gaslight and Setting, 5 stars. Saga Volume 9 by Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan. Sad, 4 stars. Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Hierarchy, 4 stars. Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Toxic, 4 stars. Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Perspective, 3 stars. Barrier Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Slow burn, 4 stars. 4 by Veronica Roth. Speedy, 3.5 stars. What If 2 by Randall Monroe. Housefire, 4 stars. Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings, the second book in the Magnolia Park series. Miscommunication, 4 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 1 by Rachel Smythe. Colors, 4 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 2 by Rachel Smythe. Relationships, 4 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 3, Hamster, 4 stars. Saga Volume 10, Drugs, 4 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 4, Girl Boss, 4 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 5, Search, 4 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 6, Denial, 4 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 7, Court, 4 stars. The Kiss Curse by Aaron Sterling, the second book in the X-Hex trilogy. Halloween, 3 stars. Saga Volume 11, Frog, 4 stars. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. Heterosexual, 3 stars. Anya's Ghost by Vera Brosgol. Davy, 3 stars. Chainsaw Man Volume 1 by Tatsuki Fujimoto. Boobs, 4 stars. Hallucinating a Demon by Ashlyn Mills. Sleep Paralysis, 3.5 stars. Chainsaw Man Volume 2, 8th Floor, 4 stars. Chainsaw Man Volume 3, Barf, 4 stars. Chainsaw Man Volume 4, Shark Boy, 4 stars. The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Rear Window, 4 stars. The First Rule of Punk by Celia C. Perez. Lemonade Mouth, 3 stars. The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Spoopy, 3.5 stars. Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi, the second book in the Children of Blood and Bone trilogy. Forgettable, 3 stars. Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. Unique, 4 stars. I do want to point out that this one is a reread. I gave it 5 stars the first time I read it, but upon rereading it, something about it just didn't hit quite the same, so I downgraded it to 4 stars for that one. Haunted Castle on Hallows Eve by Mary Pope Osborne. Meh, 3 stars. Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Zinnemann. Meth Llamas, 4.5 stars. My second cliff notes for this video would be to read this book. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Systemic, 4 stars. Chainsaw Man Volume 5, Boom, 3.5 stars. Chainsaw Man Volume 6, Mouse, 4 stars. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akiki Emezi. Sculpture, 3 stars. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alier Sayens. Inscrutable and Emotions, 5 stars. The Raven and Other Poems by Edgar Allan Poe. El Dorado, 3 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 8, Ending, 4 stars. Children of Anguish and Anarchy by Tomi Adeyemi, the third Children of Blood and Bone book. Death, 3 stars. The Wedding Witch by Aaron Sterling, the third book in the X-Hex trilogy. Time Travel, 3.5 stars. And last but not least, we have Ruin, the third book in the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. Prophecy, 4 stars. So that is every single book that I read in 2025, as well as the star rating and word that I would use to describe it. Do let me know, again, if you guys want to hear more in-depth thoughts on any of these books. I really have been in the mood to make a wrap-up video, so I might do a little seasonal wrap-up of everything that I've read in the past few months very soon. I meant to do one a few months ago, and I decided that I wasn't gonna do those anymore, but I feel like I was just kind of in a little bit of a filming slump because I was trying to film way more videos than I was able to, given everything I had on my plate. Still do. I have 3 jobs and I'm a student, so obviously it's kind of hard to find the time to film videos a lot of the time, but I've been really in the mood to. So I'm hoping to get as many videos out for you guys as I can in the near future. Let me know if there's anything specific you guys want to see. I definitely have some things in mind that I want to work on, especially now that I have this microphone. I'm so excited that I have now real, like, reasonable audio. What a time to be alive. I'm just happy to be here. So thank you guys for tuning in. Again, my Bookstagram, my Goodreads, and my book talk will all be, I don't know why I said again. I have only mentioned, I think, one of those things previously in this video, but I digress. Those will all be linked in the description of this video if you guys would like to check out any of those, as well as the link to some of my most recent videos, such as my December Wheel of TBR. And I can't really remember what else that I would put down there, but there'll be something good down there. Fear not. Comment down below your favorite book of 2025. Thank you guys for being here and watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.